The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations. Representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in their assigned seats, discussing trade routes and border disputes. Most of them looked bored. After all, today's agenda seemed simple enough. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire tapped his long blue fingers on his desk. His 4 eyes scanned the holographic display showing a small yellow star with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star appeared blue and green, covered mostly in water and clouds. "The Sol system," announced Council Speaker Vex Thule, her mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. "The hegemony of Vorth has requested colonization rights to this system for resource extraction. The inhabited planet designated Earth contains a primitive species called humans." Several council members chuckled. The hegemony was known for taking over worlds that couldn't fight back. They preferred easy targets over real challenges. War Chief Thurvak of the hegemony stood up from his seat. He was a massive creature, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and tusks jutting from his lower jaw. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Honored council members, the Sol system contains valuable metals and energy sources. The native species has barely left their home planet. Our scouts report they use primitive chemical rockets and basic nuclear weapons. They pose no threat to any civilized species." Ambassador Kethvar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Stone throwers with delusions of grandeur," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "I've seen their broadcasts. They still fight wars with explosive projectiles and worship invisible beings in the sky." The crystalline representative, a being made of living diamond, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "What does our intelligence network say about their technological level?" A hologram appeared showing crude Earth spacecraft. The ships looked clunky and slow compared to sleek galactic vessels. The data scrolled past quickly. Chemical propulsion, nuclear fission, basic electronics, radio communications. The technology level seemed laughably primitive. "They've achieved basic spaceflight within their own system," reported Intelligence Director Quintar. "However, they show no signs of faster-than-light travel or energy weapons. Their most advanced weapons are fusion bombs, which are essentially large firecrackers by our standards." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Several species had developed fusion weapons in their Bronze Age equivalents. For a spacefaring species to still rely on such crude tools seemed almost embarrassing. "What about their population and culture?" asked the representative from the aquatic worlds. "Approximately 8 billion individuals divided into numerous competing nations," Quintar continued. "They spend most of their resources fighting each other over territory and resources instead of developing technology or exploring space. Classic signs of a primitive pre-unified civilization." War Chief Thurvak nodded approvingly. "As you can see, Honored Council, these humans are exactly the type of species covered under Galactic Law 847C. Pre-spacefaring primitives who lack the capability to defend their system. The law clearly states that such species should be relocated to preserve their development while allowing advanced civilizations to utilize available resources. The law was controversial but practical. Many council members had used it to expand their own territories. It seemed more humane than simply wiping out primitive species, and it kept valuable resources from being wasted by civilizations too young to use them properly. "Where do you propose to relocate them?" asked the draconian representative, her serpentine head swaying slightly. "We have prepared a suitable garden world in the Tau sector," Thurvak replied. "Plenty of room, good climate, and far enough from major shipping lanes that they won't interfere with galactic commerce. They'll never know the difference." Ambassador Kethvar studied the data again. Earth seemed unremarkable in every way. No unique resources that couldn't be found elsewhere. No strategic importance. No advanced technology worth studying. Just another boring world full of creatures who thought they were important. "How many ships will you need for the relocation?" he asked. 200 vessels should be more than sufficient," Thurvak said confidently. "Our battle cruisers alone outmass their entire space presence by a factor of 10,000. I expect minimal resistance. Most primitive species surrender immediately when they see our ships." The debate continued for another hour, but it was mostly formality. Nobody really cared about one insignificant world full of primitives. The humans hadn't even contacted the galactic community. They seemed completely unaware that a vast civilization existed beyond their tiny solar system. "I've dealt with species like this before," Thurvak continued. They usually panic when they see our ships and beg for mercy. We'll give them time to pack their belongings and say goodbye to their world. Standard relocation protocol. Several council members nodded. The relocation process had been refined over centuries. Quick, efficient, and usually peaceful once the primitive species understood they had no choice in the matter. Any objections to the hegemony's request? Asked Council Speaker Vexthal. The chamber remained quiet. A few representatives seemed to be sleeping. Others were reading reports about more important matters. One delegate from the Merchant Alliance was calculating trade profits on his personal computer. Very well. All in favor of granting colonization rights to the Sol system? Hundreds of hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages raised into the air. The vote wasn't even close. Motion approved. The hegemony of Vorth is granted full colonization rights to the Sol system. Relocation of the native species will proceed according to standard protocols. War Chief Thurvac smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Another easy conquest for the hegemony. His military record would look even better with a successful relocation operation. Perhaps the council would finally approve his promotion to Supreme War Chief. As the council members filed out of the chamber, most of them had already forgotten about Earth and its primitive inhabitants. They had more important things to worry about. Trade disputes with the Merchant Alliance, border tensions with the Outer Rim territories, the ongoing negotiations with the mysterious Void Dwellers. Nobody noticed the small observation drone that had been recording the entire session from the shadows near the ceiling. The drone's advanced sensors and cloaking technology made it invisible to galactic detection systems. It had been there for months, carefully documenting council proceedings. The drone transmitted its recordings across the galaxy using quantum communication channels that bypassed all known detection networks. The signal traveled faster than any galactic ship, carrying news of the council's decision to a hidden facility buried deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. In that facility, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the council proceedings on a massive holographic display. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and calm brown eyes that had seen too much conflict. Behind her, dozens of technicians monitored communication networks and fleet positions across the galaxy. They took the bait, said Dr. Elena Vasquez, stepping up beside the Admiral. She was younger, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. 200 ships, just like we predicted. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Signal all commands. Operation Revelation begins in 72 hours. It's time to let the galaxy know that Earth isn't as quiet as they think. The two women stood in comfortable silence, watching as the Galactic Council congratulated itself on another easy decision. None of them suspected that the primitive planet they had just condemned was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. 3 weeks later, War Chief Thurvac stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang. Through the massive viewing screen, he could see Earth growing larger as his fleet approached. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and defenseless, just as expected. Fleet status report, he commanded. All 200 ships are in formation, War Chief, replied his tactical officer. No signs of resistance. Their primitive satellites are tracking us, but they haven't attempted any hostile actions. Thurvac grinned. This was going exactly as planned. He had seen this scenario dozens of times before. Primitive species always reacted the same way when faced with superior technology. First came fear, then panic, then complete surrender. Begin standard intimidation protocol, he ordered. I want those ships positioned directly over their major population centers. Ensure maximum psychological impact. The hegemony fleet moved into position above Earth's largest cities. The massive warships, each one over a mile long, cast shadows across New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow. Their dark hulls blocked out the sun as they hovered motionless in the sky. Open communication channels, Thurvac said. Let's introduce ourselves to these primitives. The communication officer nodded. Broadcasting on all human frequencies, War Chief. Thurvac stepped forward, his imposing figure filling the communication screen. He had practiced this speech many times. The key was to sound powerful but not cruel, overwhelming but not murderous. Most species surrendered immediately when they understood the hopelessness of their situation. People of Earth, he began, his voice booming across every radio and television on the planet. I am War Chief Thurvac of the hegemony of Vorth. Your planet has been selected for colonization by the Galactic Council. You have 72 hours to prepare for relocation to a new world. He paused, letting the words sink in. Usually this was when the screaming started. Do not attempt to resist. Our technology is thousands of years beyond yours. Any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force. Prepare your population for immediate evacuation. Your belongings will be transported to your new home. Thurvak cut the communication and turned to his officers. Now we wait for them to panic and beg for mercy, but the expected response never came. Instead of panicked broadcasts and desperate pleas, Earth remained strangely quiet. Military units around the planet moved into defensive positions, but there was no mass hysteria. No desperate attempts to flee the planet, War Chief, said the communication officer, sounding confused. We're receiving a response from Earth. Excellent. Put it on screen. Instead of a terrified world leader, the screen showed a woman in a crisp military uniform. She appeared to be middle-aged, with short gray hair and steady brown eyes that showed no fear whatsoever. Behind her, Thurvak could see what looked like an advanced command center with holographic displays and sleek technology. Unknown vessels, the woman said calmly. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have entered Earth's sovereign space without permission and made threats against our civilian population. State your intentions clearly or prepare to be escorted from our system. Thurvak stared at the screen in disbelief. This primitive was speaking to him as an equal. Where was the fear? Where was the begging? And what was the United Earth Defense Fleet? His intelligence reports had mentioned no such organization. I am War Chief Thurvak, he replied, his voice harder now. Your species is under the protection of the Galactic Council. We are here to relocate you to a safer world. Resistance is futile. Admiral Chen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. War Chief Thurvak, you seem to be operating under some mistaken assumptions about Earth's capabilities. I'll give you one chance to withdraw peacefully. Leave our system now and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. The bridge of the Iron Fang erupted in laughter. Thurvak's officers couldn't believe what they were hearing. A primitive species was threatening them. Fire a warning shot across their planet, Thurvak ordered. Show them what real power looks like. The Iron Fang's main cannon charged up with a brilliant blue glow. The weapon could crack a moon in half with a direct hit. Surely that would convince these stubborn humans to see reason. The energy beam lanced out toward Earth's upper atmosphere, designed to create a spectacular but harmless light show. It would demonstrate the hegemony's power without actually damaging anything important. But something impossible happened. As the beam approached Earth, it simply disappeared. Not deflected or absorbed, but gone as if it had never existed. What happened? Thurvak demanded. Unknown, War Chief, replied the weapons officer, frantically checking his instruments. The beam just vanished. All our sensors show the shot was fired correctly. Before Thurvak could respond, Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. That was your warning shot, I assume. Here's ours. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the hegemony fleet. Sensors detected dozens of new contacts appearing around Earth. But these weren't the crude chemical rockets that intelligence had reported. These ships were sleek, elegant vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Where did they come from? Thurvak shouted. Unknown, War Chief. They weren't there a second ago. They just appeared. The human ships moved with impossible grace, darting between hegemony vessels like dancers in a deadly ballet. They were smaller than the hegemony warships, but moved faster than anything Thurvak had ever seen. Return fire, he commanded. All ships engage the enemy. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space around Earth as 200 warships unleashed their weapons. The display was magnificent, like a deadly fireworks show against the backdrop of space. But the human ships didn't behave like normal vessels. Some of them simply phased through the weapons fire as if it wasn't there. Others seemed to absorb the energy attacks and redirect them back at their attackers. A few disappeared entirely, only to reappear behind hegemony ships and strike with pinpoint accuracy. War Chief, the tactical officer called out in panic. We've lost the Bone Crusher and the Death Hammer. Their shields were completely bypassed. The human weapons cut through our armor like it wasn't there. Thurvak watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by ships that shouldn't exist. The humans fought with technology that made hegemony weapons look like stone knives. Their vessels moved through space as if the normal laws of physics didn't apply to them. How is this possible? He whispered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again. She looked sad rather than angry, like a teacher disappointed in a student's behavior. War Chief Thurvak, You came here expecting to find a primitive species that couldn't defend itself. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was threatening our people. Your third mistake was opening fire. More human ships appeared, emerging from hidden bases on the moon and in the asteroid belt. They surrounded the hegemony fleet completely, their strange weapons charging with ominous energy. You have two choices, Admiral Chen continued.
Surrender now and face trial for attempted genocide, or continue fighting and be destroyed.
I'm hoping you'll choose surrender. Despite what you've done today, we'd prefer not to kill anyone if we can avoid it. Thurvak looked around his bridge at his terrified officers. These weren't the same confident warriors who had laughed at human threats just minutes ago. Now they stared at their instruments in disbelief as human technology proved superior to everything the hegemony possessed. This is impossible, Thurvak said, more to himself than anyone else. The intelligence report said they were primitives, stone throwers with delusions of grandeur. Admiral Chen's expression grew even sadder. That's what we wanted you to think, War Chief. The question now is whether you're smart enough to learn from your mistakes, or if you'll keep fighting a battle you can't possibly win. Around the hegemony fleet, more human ships continued to appear, surrounding them in an ever-tightening circle of superior technology and overwhelming firepower. The hunters had become the hunted, and War Chief Thurvak was beginning to realize that everything he thought he knew about Earth was completely wrong. Across the galaxy, emergency communication networks blazed with activity. News of the hegemony's crushing defeat at Earth spread faster than anyone thought possible. Intelligence agencies scrambled to understand what they had witnessed. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Ambassador Kethvar stood in his private office, staring at holographic recordings of the battle. His four eyes tracked the impossible movements of human ships as they danced through hegemony weapons fire without taking a single hit. This cannot be real, he muttered, rewinding the footage for the 10th time. These primitives were using chemical rockets just weeks ago. His aide, a younger Zephyrian with nervous energy, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, our deep space monitoring stations are reporting similar human vessels throughout the galaxy. They've been there for decades, but their cloaking technology made them invisible to our sensors. Kethavar felt his heart skip beats. If humans had been watching galactic civilization for decades, what else did they know? What other secrets had they uncovered while everyone else dismissed them as primitive stone throwers? Meanwhile, in the Crystalline Collective's capital system, emergency council sessions were being called. The diamond beings communicated through harmonic frequencies that created beautiful music. But today their songs were filled with discord and fear. The humans bypassed our quantum shields as if they didn't exist, sang one of the military advisors. Their weapons operate on principles we don't understand. How did we miss this level of advancement? The prime crystal, a being whose faceted form caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns, harmonized a response. Perhaps the question is not how we missed it, but how they hid it so effectively. This suggests intelligence and planning beyond anything we credited them with. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around her, hundreds of technicians monitored galactic communication networks, listening to the chaos spreading throughout known space. Dr. Vasquez, she called to the scientist standing nearby, it's time for Phase 2. Let them know exactly how wrong they've been. Dr. Elena Vasquez nodded and activated the quantum communication array. This was the moment they had prepared for over 2 centuries. The moment humanity would reveal the truth about their real capabilities. Her image appeared simultaneously on communication networks throughout the galaxy. Government buildings, military command centers, news stations, and private communication devices all received the same signal. The transmission bypassed every security system and encryption method known to galactic civilization. People of the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez began, her voice calm and professional. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Chief Science Officer of the United Earth Science Consortium. Today, your assumptions about humanity were proven incorrect. I'm here to explain how and why. The holographic display behind her shifted to show star maps of the galaxy. Thousands of small indicators began appearing throughout the display, showing human presence in every major star system. For the past 237 years, humanity has been exploring the galaxy, she continued. We established our first permanent base outside the Sol system in 2788. Since then, we have research stations, observation posts, and colonies in 17 galaxies. The display zoomed in to show detailed images of human installations, advanced cities floating in space, research facilities built into asteroids, and massive orbital shipyards that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen before. During our exploration, we discovered something remarkable: the ruins of an ancient civilization that existed millions of years before any current galactic species achieved spaceflight. We called them the Architects. New images appeared showing vast alien structures built from materials that seemed to absorb light. Complex geometric patterns covered walls that stretched for miles underground. Technology that looked more like art than machinery. While other species found empty ruins when they encountered architect sites, human archaeological teams developed methods to unlock their secrets. We learned their language, their science, and their technology. More importantly, we learned why they disappeared. The display showed recordings of galactic wars, species destroying each other over resources and territory, the same patterns of conflict that had dominated galactic politics for thousands of years. The architects vanished because they couldn't learn to work together, Dr. Vasquez explained. They achieved incredible technology but used it to destroy themselves and their civilization. When we discovered this, we made a difficult decision. We would remain hidden until the galaxy showed signs of maturity and wisdom. Kethvar slammed his fist against his desk, causing several data crystals to shatter. Impossible. We would have detected them. Our sensor networks cover every system. But even as he spoke, he remembered the strange readings his people had occasionally detected. Sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared too quickly to track. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. His scientists had dismissed them as equipment malfunctions or natural phenomena. Dr. Vasquez continued her broadcast, unaware of the chaos her words were causing throughout the galaxy. We spent 2 centuries studying your civilizations, your technologies, and your conflicts. We hope to see signs of growth, of species learning to cooperate instead of fighting. Instead, we watch the same cycles of war and conquest repeat endlessly. The display showed battle footage from dozens of galactic conflicts. Species wiping out others for resources. Entire civilizations destroyed because they were different. The hegemony's attack on Earth was just the latest example of galactic brutality. We could have revealed ourselves at any time, she said. We could have shared architect technology with everyone and advanced galactic civilization by thousands of years. But we learned from the architect's mistake. Technology without wisdom leads to destruction. In the Draconian Empire's war rooms, generals stared at the broadcast in stunned silence. Their secret weapons projects, their hidden military bases, their classified research programs were all being displayed on screen with perfect detail. "They've been watching us," hissed General Skarthek, her serpentine features twisted with rage and fear. "They know everything about our capabilities, our weaknesses, our plans." The footage showed human research vessels observing Draconian ships during classified military exercises. The observers had been there for decades, recording everything, learning every tactic and strategy the Draconians thought was secret. Dr. Vasquez's voice drew attention back to the main broadcast. "Today's attack on Earth forced us to reveal ourselves earlier than we hoped." War Chief Thurvak of the hegemony approached our world with the intention of committing genocide against 8 billion innocent people. The display showed recordings from the Galactic Council meeting where Earth's fate had been decided. The casual dismissal of human life, the laughter when Earth was called primitive, the vote that condemned an entire species without a second thought. "This is the maturity level of galactic civilization," Dr. Vasquez said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "A council that can vote to destroy 8 billion lives because they seem inconvenient. Species that define advancement by their ability to kill, rather than their ability to create." Across the galaxy, communication networks crashed as too many people tried to access the human broadcast at once. Emergency meetings were called on every world. Military forces went to high alert, though no one was sure what they were preparing for. On the Merchant Alliance's trade station, business had stopped completely. Traders who had built their fortunes on advanced technology suddenly realized they were selling toys compared to what humans possessed. Their cutting-edge equipment looked like children's games next to architect technology. The quantum processors we bought from the Zephyrians last month, whispered Trademaster Vexlon to his assistant. The humans were using better versions of those systems 300 years ago. Dr. Vasquez began the final part of her broadcast. Humanity stands at a crossroads with the rest of the galaxy. We can continue hiding while you repeat the same mistakes that destroyed the architects, or we can work together to build something better. The display showed images of human ships defending alien colonies from raiders, records of human scientists secretly helping cure diseases on primitive worlds, evidence of human intervention preventing dozens of wars and genocides throughout galactic history. "We've been protecting you from yourselves for centuries," she said. "Preventing conflicts you never knew started. Stopping disasters before they happened. Preserving species you would have wiped out without a second thought." The broadcast ended with a simple message that appeared in every language known to galactic civilization. Humanity is ready to join galactic society openly. The question is whether galactic society is ready to grow up. In his command chair aboard the Iron Fang, War Chief Thurvak stared at the blank screen where the broadcast had been. Around him, his officers sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about the universe had just been proven wrong. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer. "What do we do now?" Thurvak had no answer. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that could have destroyed his entire civilization at any point in the past 2 centuries. Instead, they had chosen to protect it. War Chief Thurvak stood alone in his private quarters aboard the Iron Fang, staring at the stars through his viewport. The human fleet surrounded his ships in perfect formation, close enough to fire but far enough away to avoid seeming aggressive. It was a professional military blockade, not the work of primitives. His communication console chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display activated to show Supreme War Chief Drackle, Thurvak's superior and one of the most feared military leaders in hegemony history. The older warrior's scarred face showed barely controlled rage. "Thurvak, explain to me how 200 of our finest warships were defeated by stone-throwing primitives." Drackle growled. "Supreme War Chief, the intelligence was wrong," Thurvak replied carefully. "These humans possess technology beyond anything in our databases. They've been hiding their true capabilities for centuries." Drackle's tusks ground together audibly. "Impossible. Our spies have been monitoring this system for decades. We know exactly what these creatures are capable of. With respect, sir, we know nothing. They've been watching us while we thought we were watching them. Their ships move through space in ways that violate known physics. Their weapons bypass our strongest shields as if they don't exist." The Supreme War Chief was quiet for a long moment, studying reports from the battle. His tactical mind, sharpened by 100 victories, was processing the impossible data his officers had transmitted. "The hegemony does not surrender to primitives," he finally said. "I'm deploying the 5th and 7th fleets to your position. 800 additional ships. If these humans want a real war, we'll give them one." Thurvak felt ice form in his stomach. "Sir, I strongly advise against escalation. Their defensive capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered. More ships will only mean more casualties." "Are you suggesting the mighty hegemony should bow to a species that was throwing rocks at each other just centuries ago?" Drackle's voice carried the promise of execution. "For the wrong answer, I'm suggesting we reassess our understanding of the situation before committing more forces." Drackle's image leaned forward menacingly. "You have 72 hours to complete your mission, Thurvak. Relocate those humans or destroy them. If you fail, I'll finish the job myself and use your ships for target practice." The communication ended, leaving Thurvak alone with his fears. He had seen the human ships in action. 800 more hegemony vessels would just create 800 more targets for weapons that seemed to ignore every defensive system ever invented. Meanwhile, emergency sessions were convening across the galaxy. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Ambassador Kethvar sat in the emergency council chamber as reports flooded in from every corner of their empire. "The humans have observation posts in 70% of our systems," reported Intelligence Director Yilvex. "They've been monitoring our military exercises, our trade routes, our diplomatic communications. Everything we thought was secret has been known to them for generations." Kethavar's 4 eyes focused on the holographic display showing human installations throughout Zephyrian space. The small, nearly invisible stations had been classified as space debris or natural phenomena. Now they realized each one was an advanced spy post. "How did they remain undetected for so long?" demanded General Kolthek. "Their cloaking technology operates on principles we don't understand," Yilvex replied. "Our sensors literally cannot detect them unless they choose to be seen. They could have ships in orbit around our homeworld right now and we'd never know. The thought terrified everyone in the room. If humans could hide observers anywhere, what else might they have hidden? Weapons platforms? Invasion fleets? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. In the crystalline collective's harmony chambers, the living diamond beings sang songs of confusion and fear. Their perfect crystalline forms resonated with frequencies that created music. But today their melodies were discordant and broken. The humans intercepted our quantum communications, harmonized Defense Coordinator Vel Crystal. Messages we thought were impossible to decode were being read in real time. They know our military capabilities better than we do. The prime crystal's faceted form caught the light as it pulsed with concern. If they can penetrate quantum encryption, our entire defense network is compromised. They could turn our own weapons against us without warning. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as each major civilization discovered the extent of human surveillance. Trade routes that seemed secure had been monitored for decades. Military secrets that formed the basis of national defense were known to human observers. Diplomatic communications that decided the fate of worlds had been intercepted and analyzed. On Earth, Admiral Chen received reports from human installations throughout the galaxy. The revelation broadcast had caused exactly the chaos they had predicted. Some species were panicking, others were preparing for war, and a few were actually trying to establish diplomatic contact. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres from the communication center, "we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The hegemony is deploying additional forces to this system. The Draconian Empire is mobilizing their entire navy. Even the usually peaceful aquatic worlds are activating their defense fleets." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "Phase 3 then. Dr. Vasquez, activate the demonstration array." Dr. Vasquez moved to a control console that looked more like a work of art than a piece of technology. The interface responded to her touch with patterns of light that seemed to flow like liquid fire. "Targeting the hegemony staging area in the Krell system," she reported. "No inhabited planets, just military supply bases and weapon platforms." The quantum communication array activated again, broadcasting throughout the galaxy. This time Admiral Chen's image appeared on every screen, her expression calm but determined. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet, addressing all galactic civilizations. We are aware of the military buildup currently underway in response to our revelation. We understand your fear and suspicion. However, we will not allow threats to Earth or any other innocent world." The display behind her showed the Krell system, where massive hegemony supply depots orbited a dead world. Thousands of weapon platforms defended the installations, along with patrol fleets that could devastate entire star systems. To demonstrate our commitment to peace and our capability to maintain it, we will now neutralize the hegemony staging area in the Krell system. Across the galaxy, military observers focused their sensors on the Krell system. Long-range telescopes and hyperspace scanners turned toward the distant battle zone, waiting to see what human technology could really accomplish. The hegemony forces in the Krell system detected no incoming ships. Their sensors showed empty space around their heavily defended installations. The base commanders were confident that their overlapping shield networks and weapon platforms could stop any conventional attack. Then space itself seemed to ripple around the hegemony bases. Reality twisted in ways that hurt to observe, creating patterns that made seasoned military officers close their eyes and look away. When the distortion cleared, the massive supply depots were simply gone. Not destroyed or damaged, but erased as if they had never existed. The weapon platforms remained intact, but their targeting systems could find no trace of what they had been built to protect. Thousands of tons of military equipment, ammunition, and supplies had vanished without leaving so much as a debris field. Admiral Chen's voice continued calmly as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "This demonstration utilized less than 1% of our defensive capabilities. We have no desire to harm anyone, but we will protect ourselves and others from aggression." On the Draconian homeworld, General Skarthek watched the recordings of the Krell demonstration with growing horror. The hegemony installations hadn't been destroyed by conventional weapons. They had been removed from existence by technology that operated beyond known physics. "If they can do that to military bases," she whispered, "what could they do to entire planets?" The question haunted every military leader watching the broadcast. Weapons that could erase matter from existence, sensors that could penetrate any defense, ships that could appear anywhere without warning. Humanity possessed power that made every other galactic military force obsolete. Admiral Chen concluded her broadcast with a simple statement that would reshape galactic politics forever. The age of conquest and genocide is over. Humanity will no longer stand by while innocent species are destroyed for convenience or profit. You have been warned. As the transmission ended, War Chief Thurvak sat in his command chair, knowing that everything had changed. The Supreme War Chief could send 1,000 fleets to Earth, and they would all share the same fate as the Krell supply bases. The hegemony, like every other galactic power, was now at the mercy of a species they had underestimated by thousands of years. The hunters had become the hunted, and the age of human involvement in galactic affairs had officially begun. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. For the first time in recorded history, every single member species had sent their highest-ranking representatives. The massive crystal amphitheater buzzed with nervous energy as beings from 1,000 worlds tried to process the new reality. War Chief Thurvak sat in a special section reserved for those awaiting trial. His massive frame looked smaller somehow, diminished by the knowledge of how completely he had been outmatched. Around him sat other military leaders who had tested human resolve in the weeks following the Krell demonstration. All had learned the same lesson. Council Speaker Vexthal called for order, her mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. This emergency session will address the integration of humanity into galactic civilization and the restructuring of interstellar law. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood to speak, his 4 eyes focused on the empty space where a human representative would soon appear. Honored colleagues, we must consider the implications of this new balance of power. Humanity possesses technology that renders our traditional military and diplomatic structures obsolete. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Every species had been forced to reassess their position in galactic politics. Trade agreements that had seemed favorable now looked like charity, from beings who could have taken anything they wanted. Military alliances built over centuries were meaningless when one species could defeat all others combined. The question before us, continued Kethvar, is whether we can adapt to this new reality, or if we will cling to old ways until they destroy us. A holographic platform materialized in the center of the chamber, and Admiral Chen appeared as if she had been teleported directly from Earth. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the nervous energy filling the council chamber. Honored representatives, she began, I come before you not as a conqueror, but as someone who hopes to build a better future for all galactic civilizations. Ambassador Dralthex of the Hegemony, speaking for his people while their war leaders faced trial, rose from his seat. Admiral Chen, your species has demonstrated overwhelming military superiority. What assurances can you give that humanity will not abuse this power? Admiral Chen's expression remained steady. The same assurance I can give that the sun will rise tomorrow. For over 2 centuries, humanity has possessed the power to conquer or destroy every civilization in this galaxy. Instead, we chose to protect and preserve. We prevented the draconian Zephyrian War of 2847 by secretly disabling both fleets before they could engage. We stopped the plague that would have wiped out the Crystalline Collective in 2851 by providing a cure while remaining invisible. We have intervened to prevent 17 genocides, 43 planetary bombardments, and countless smaller conflicts. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed this information. Many of the conflicts Admiral Chen mentioned were historical footnotes, brief diplomatic tensions that had somehow resolved themselves peacefully. Now they learned why. Dr. Vasquez's voice joined the conversation from Earth through quantum communication. What Admiral Chen isn't mentioning is that we've been cleaning up after galactic civilization for centuries. Toxic waste dumps that would have poisoned entire systems disposed of safely, weapons of mass destruction that could have fallen into the wrong hands quietly neutralized, species driven to the brink of extinction by war or environmental disaster, secretly relocated to safe worlds. Prime crystal harmony of the Crystalline Collective resonated a question that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Why did you remain hidden for so long? Why not reveal yourselves and guide galactic development openly? Admiral Chen's expression grew sad. Because we learned from the architect's mistake. When an advanced civilization tries to force progress on younger species, it creates dependency rather than growth. We hoped you would learn wisdom on your own, the way humanity did. And what changed your mind? Asked the representative from the aquatic worlds. War Chief Thurvak's attack on Earth proved that galactic civilization hasn't learned anything from its history. Admiral Chen replied. The Galactic Council voted to commit genocide against 8 billion innocent people without hesitation. That decision was made in minutes based on nothing more than the assumption that we couldn't defend ourselves. War Chief Thurvak shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The recording of the original council session had been broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing the casual dismissal of human life that had led to the current crisis. The time for subtle guidance is over, Admiral Chen continued. Humanity will now take an active role in galactic affairs to ensure that such decisions are never made again. General Skarthek of the Draconian Empire stood up, her serpentine features tense with barely controlled emotion. And what gives humanity the right to decide the fate of other species? Admiral Chen turned to face the Draconian representative directly. The same right that gave the Galactic Council the authority to condemn Earth, the right of superior power. The difference is that we intend to use that power responsibly. She activated a holographic display that showed star maps of the galaxy. Thousands of indicators appeared, showing human installations and observation posts that had remained hidden for centuries. Humanity has established peaceful research stations and colonies in 17 different galaxies. Admiral Chen explained. We have detailed knowledge of over 50,000 star systems and peaceful contact with hundreds of species you've never encountered. Our perspective on galactic civilization is somewhat broader than what you've experienced in this small corner of the universe. The chamber erupted in excited conversations as representatives realized that their understanding of galactic geography had been limited to a tiny fraction of explored space. Humanity had been exploring and cataloging the universe while other species fought over the same small territories. We propose a new structure for galactic governance, Admiral Chen continued. One based on cooperation rather than conquest, on preservation rather than exploitation. Species will be free to govern themselves as they see fit, but actions that threaten other civilizations or innocent populations will not be tolerated. Ambassador Kethvar leaned forward in his seat. And if a species refuses to accept these new rules, then they will discover that their military forces, their weapon systems, and their ability to threaten others have mysteriously stopped functioning. Admiral Chen replied calmly. We prefer persuasion to force, but we are prepared to use whatever methods necessary to maintain peace. The demonstration at Krell had already shown that human technology could neutralize any conventional military force. Several species had tested this claim in the weeks since the revelation, launching attacks on human installations or attempting to continue their territorial wars. In every case, their weapons had simply stopped working. Ships found themselves unable to fire, missiles failed to detonate, and energy weapons refused to charge. Dr. Vasquez's voice added details to Admiral Chen's proposal. We're not asking anyone to give up their sovereignty or abandon their cultures. We're simply establishing a framework where conflicts are resolved through negotiation rather than genocide, where scientific advancement is shared rather than hoarded, where younger species are protected and guided rather than conquered or eliminated. Trademaster Vexilon of the Merchant Alliance raised a practical concern. What about existing trade agreements and economic structures? Many of our civilizations depend on current commercial relationships. Existing agreements will be honored, Admiral Chen assured him. However, any trade in weapons of mass destruction, slave labor, or technologies designed solely for conquest will be discontinued. We're happy to help affected economies transition to more constructive forms of commerce. The debate continued for hours as representatives grappled with the new reality. Some species embraced the change, tired of constant warfare and military expenses. Others resisted, unwilling to give up the power they had accumulated through force. But resistance proved futile. Species that attempted to maintain aggressive policies found their ability to project force had simply vanished. The hegemony discovered that their entire fleet had been equipped with human-designed safety systems that prevented weapons from targeting civilian populations. The Draconian Empire learned that their secret research facilities had been monitored and their most dangerous projects quietly neutralized years earlier. As the session concluded, Admiral Chen stood to address the chamber one final time. Honored representatives, humanity doesn't seek to rule the galaxy. We seek to civilize it. The choice is yours: grow into the peaceful, cooperative civilization you have the potential to become, or remain children playing with dangerous toys while adults supervise your games. War Chief Thurvak was escorted from the chamber to await trial for war crimes. His fate would serve as an example to others who might consider using force against innocent populations. The hegemony's military structure would be dismantled and rebuilt around defensive, rather than offensive capabilities. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had imagined possible. Wars that had raged for centuries suddenly ended as both sides found their weapons inoperative.